Hello and welcome to another morning live on NTN. We'd like to thank you so much for tuning in. We're coming to you from the Information Command Center studio at the GIS. We'd like to thank you again for tuning in. My name is Jessie Leonce. Today is Tuesday, the 17th of November, 2020. We're one day into the amended protocols in response to COVID-19 here on island. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but we do have some new cases to speak on, case number 172 and 173. This has brought the total number of active cases currently in country to 112. We'll be hearing from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, and we will be taking a look back at the press conference that was held shortly after the NEMAC meeting on Friday. Looking at the protocols, we want to remind you of what these amended protocols are. It is an effort to overall reduce social activity here on island as we continue to see an increase in cases almost day by day. The effort is to adhere to the guidelines as much as possible, adhere and comply to the protocols as much as possible as the authorities try to contain and manage the virus. We also have in the news for our 24-hour cycle, Wasco moving into the second phase at the Compton Dam, and the Bankers Association's good tidings at Cornerstone. We're going to end our program with a little wonderful news there in terms of the festive season. For those of you who are already putting up your Christmas trees, for those of you who are really getting into the holiday mood, it's a good save for 2020. It's been a trying year. We've so far seen the Atlantic hurricane season upon us. We've had COVID-19 upon us. The pandemic has changed the world in most persons would say forever, because we now have a new normal in the way we must behave globally. And also we've been dealing here in St. Lucia with dengue. Unfortunately, so we've had fatalities for both viruses, and we do hope that at this time the season of the holiday season can bring comfort and have people remember those they lost. Do stay tuned. When we come back, we take a look at the latest stories.
Cette lisi ka registre vermin corona ek I ka fait mouvement ek en chay vitesse tan chaque canef ka kouye pour vigilance publique la fait wolo parler en place publique qu'on bol en mai base ti boutique changer distance sociale 6 pieds hod yon a lot I ka travail tan si ou senti ko pas cordial quarantine ko pas en contact et puis l'autre en cas où te toi pe exposé c'est un écouye free 11 ou ben n'importe clinique yo pou les pays a dimi à clé ça veut dire les supermarkets pharmacie et puis ATM yo accessible avant c'était souhait pays à clé en plein ça veut dire tout bagay fermé à 24 heures servi protocole comme sorti par bureau indication santé nous tout ensemble ça sauver vermine corona si nous tout servi jidla à toutes les
together let us win this war say to shall be a soldier together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. This is the morning programming live on NTN for today, Tuesday, the 17th of November. We now go to a statement from the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George. We have new cases to report for the last 24 hours. Take a look.
Today, Monday, November 16th, 2020, the Ministry of Health and Wellness received confirmation of 2 new cases of COVID-19. This brings the total number of cases diagnosed in country to date to 173. Case number 172 is a 7-year-old male from the Vieux Fort district. Case number 173 is a 65-year-old male from the Vieux-Fort district. Both of these individuals, after being assessed and tested for COVID-19, were placed in quarantine by the health practitioners while awaiting receipt of their test results. One of these cases was identified through the contact tracing process, and an epidemiological link has been established for this case. Case number 173 is linked to case number 155. As per protocol, arrangements have been made to place these individuals into care. The new total number of active cases currently in country is now 112. At present, one of the active cases remains in critical care at the respiratory hospital, and all of the other active cases are stable. The Ministry of Health and Wellness has noted that over the past 3 weeks, a number of individuals in care have recovered and been discharged from care. It is important that families, communities, workplaces, and the wider society help in creating a supportive environment which will reduce the fear or concerns of individuals who are returning to their daily routines after recovery. An individual who has been diagnosed with COVID-19 needs the comfort of familiar faces and places to help in their reintegration, as this helps with their emotional and mental well-being. As such, the Ministry of Health and Wellness makes an appeal to everyone to be compassionate and avoid stigma towards individuals who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. Let us continue to practice the infection prevention and control guidelines that will help to reduce the exposure to the virus. Wash and sanitize your hands often during the day. Ensure a mask is always used when in public, and ensure it covers both your mouth and your nose. Sanitize frequently touched surfaces, often using a bleach solution, and maintain the separation of 6 feet from others, which is about 2 arms length. If experiencing flu-like symptoms, keep away from others and seek medical care immediately at the closest respiratory clinic. Also avoid contact with others who may have flu-like symptoms. We, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, will continue to provide updates as information becomes available.
That was the word there from the CMO Chief Medical Officer. 2 new cases of COVID-19 registered yesterday. That was the 16th of November, and it also coincided with the revised, amended COVID-19 protocols that took effect yesterday as well. And amended COVID-19 measures, which took effect yesterday, have been reinforced to target areas of high transmission, as recommended by health officials. The stricter measures come on the heels of rapidly increasing cases of COVID-19. We saw over the weekend 15 new cases being registered of COVID-19. On the other hand, we're also seeing 13 recoveries since Thursday, but still it is concerning for the authorities. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George says that epidemiological links between COVID-19 patients indicate a lack of compliance to protocols. And this was an area that the authorities spoke on quite a bit in the press conference following the NEMAC meeting. That was the update to the nation. We have a report on these concerning observations on the part of the authorities, as well as the tightened protocols which are geared at limiting social interactions here in St. Lucia. Take a look. St. Lucia has updated its COVID-19 classification to clusters of cases. As recent as this past weekend, epidemiological links are being established between most of the diagnosed. On Sunday, 15th November, 5 of the 9 cases registered were connected to earlier patients. 3 of the 4 cases registered on Friday are confirmed links to earlier patients also. The Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, notes that the virus's reproductive rate has increased in this second wave on the island. She attributes non-adherence to the protocols as a prime cause.
Our contact tracing team, they've noted the increases in transmission in our positive cases. What do they note? The level of risk from our positive cases, indicating the lack of compliance to the various protocols and policies that have been put in place to date. So that given we know the lack of compliance, it puts us at this stage in a very critical position where if we don't work to break the chain of transmission with immediate effect, it would lead to our forecasting and our projections over the next 14 days to almost tripling the numbers that we are noting to date.
While authorities are generally satisfied with the performance of the business sector in its compliance to the protocols, they remain concerned with what transpires during social activities. Acting Commissioner of Police Milton Daisy says the force has had to deal with protocol offenders in this regard.
We realize that the protocols that had been established, especially that was 2 weeks ago, persons were not fully complying. I must say that at this point we realized that the wearing of masks, there was a vast improvement in the city where persons were wearing their mask, I must admit. However, there were certain protocols not being followed, for example, at the various bars and places of public entertainment. We saw that the persons were supposed to have bought their drinks and leave the bar, but that was not happening. Also, we are still getting complaints on the buses where persons not complying with especially the drivers, the total number of persons that they need to carry. We are getting the complaints. We are getting videos of persons who I must, at this point, thank the members of the public who see it fitting to report these incidents.
In the update to the nation on Friday, 13th November, Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney announced amended protocols targeting social events. Mass gatherings and social activities are strictly prohibited. No provisions are to be made for celebrations of any kind, including birthdays, retirements, wedding and funeral receptions, wakes, boat rides, or picnics. All sporting activities are also prohibited, including gyms. All daily church and religious services are limited to 25 individuals within the church compound. Bars must adopt the grab-and-go policy, as consumption of alcohol at establishments is not allowed. Bars must also close daily at 4 p.m. Similarly, all food establishments must offer only takeaway services, as dining in is prohibited.
We have reached a tipping point. We can change our projection and maintain, for the most part, the economy and the health of our society. But we have to be disciplined. This is the only thing that we can do. Failing which, that we will have to strengthen those protocols even further. It's sad that persons continue to go to bars and hang out outside. It's sad that persons were continuing to have beach parties. We need to take this thing seriously, St. Lucia and St. Lucians. We're the only ones who are going to suffer if we fail to rise to this challenge. And these protocols are to be guidelines for you, and by strengthening those guidelines to help the enforcement officers to implement these guidelines.
The amended protocols take effect Monday, 16th November, and will be subject to review in a week. Between Friday, 13th November to Sunday, the 15th, the island registered 15 new cases of COVID-19. In this same period, 13 patients recovered, were released from care, and reintegrated into their communities. St. Lucia's total number of confirmed cases stands at 171 to date. From the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. And that was news as at last night. So at this point in time, the number of cases of COVID-19 registered here on island is 173. Yesterday evening, we got word from the Department of Health and Wellness of 2 new cases of COVID-19, as previously mentioned by the CMO. The Prime Minister there on that report calling for discipline among the population at this time. There's certainly commendations forthcoming to the business sector, commercial sector, retail, and so on for their level of discipline and their response to COVID-19 in adherence and compliance to the protocols that have been instituted so far. But there remains concern as to the social activities here on island. We also heard from the CMO and the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Milton Daisy, that they have observed a level of non-compliance of individuals, particularly at the bars where individuals tend to socialize, congregate, and form crowds that aren't really helping the situation in terms of containing COVID-19 and reducing the risks of transmission as much as possible. So here goes. The protocols, the Prime Minister has indicated that he cannot ask businesses to close, but there is an admonition, there is a plea that if you can institute work from home policies to do so and reduce contact meetings. This again is in an effort to reduce the risk of transmission that's in the workplace, work from home policies where possible. We also have business operations and commercial activities must end by 9 p.m. and the authorities have put this in place to ensure that individuals have a good amount of time to get home safely and indoors as soon as possible, and also reducing the level of business on evenings to ensure that we reduce the risk of transmission. Mass gatherings and social activities strictly prohibited. No provisions will be made for celebrations of any kind, including birthdays, retirements, weddings, funeral receptions as well, wakes, boat rides, beach picnics, and that like, so the effort again, reducing the risk of transmission. Limitation of social gatherings, including the church. All daily church and religious services are limited to 25 individuals within the church compound. Special religious rites and services, including christenings, weddings, and funerals, will be limited to 25 individuals, inclusive of observers and the service leaders. So you can have a wedding in the church. You can have funerals, but you're not to have wedding or funeral receptions. You're not to have wakes at this time. Restrictions on alcohol sales, consumption of alcohol on premises is not allowed. So any of the bar establishments, standalone bars, must close at 4 p.m. and they're not to entertain or accommodate anybody hanging around socializing while drinking. The grab and go policy remains in effect for bars for the entire time that they are open, right up until 4 p.m. No gathering outside of bars either. So strict measures of enforcement will be taken. Consumption is prohibited at the bars. We remind you, consumption is prohibited at the bars. It was one of the things that the Deputy Commissioner of Police did mention, that they were noticing a level of non-compliance at the bars, and it is not allowed at this point in time. They will be enforcing the protocols, so please ensure that you adhere. In terms of alcohol sales at restaurants, alcohol sales and the situation with restaurants and food vendors, food establishments, gas stations sell alcohol, supermarkets sell alcohol, restaurants and food vendors can sell alcohol until 9 p.m. via the grab and go policy. They can also sell the food via takeaway services. All food and drinks are required to be served to go. There will be strictly no dining experiences for the assigned period, and that period is for the next 2 weeks. All team and competitive sporting activities also are prohibited. That is inclusive of indoor and outdoor trainings, competitions, gym workouts, and social activities. They are all prohibited for the given time period. Provisions apply for individual or immediate family households to exercise in a safe open air space, and these activities may include running or walking, cycling, home gyms, yoga, etc. So again, these protocols are all in an effort to reduce you interacting unnecessarily with other people who are not from the same household as you. The The effort is to reduce transmission. We've seen last week our first fatalities associated to COVID-19. 2 individuals lost their lives, unfortunately, and the effort now is to try to bring back the numbers. The reproductive rate, as the CMO did indicate, is increasing in this second wave of COVID-19 that we're experiencing here on island. And in an effort to contain it and in an effort to manage COVID-19 overall, they need to take these measures to try to bring back the numbers as much as possible. We are due for a break. When we come back, the water and sewage company Wasco officially launches phase 2 of the desilting works at the Compton Dam. Do stay tuned for that report.
We at war with the virus, ready to harm us. Panic is not the answer. We can win this together.
Often use hand sanitizer, better yet use soap and water.
We must protect each other if we are to beat this corona. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. Be a soldier, together we can beat this corona.
So you don't become the next case. Avoid touching your face. I'm sure you've been told so. Handshakes and hugging are a no.
Advice, give you the please. Cover your mouth and your nose if you cough or sneeze.
Practice social distancing and avoid large social gatherings.
Together let us win this war. Be a soldier for St. Lucia. Together let us win this war. St. Lucia, be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
For further information, please contact the hotline at 311 or the Bureau of Health Education at 468-5349.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is the morning program live on NTN. We're coming to you from the Information Command Center of the GIS studios, bringing you the latest developments from the government of St. Lucia. We just came off of a review of the protocols, the amended protocols that took effect yesterday, Monday, the 16th of November, 2020, in an effort to limit social interactions as we continue to see an increase in cases almost daily. We continue with news. The water and sewage company Wasco has officially launched phase 2 of the desilting works at the Compton Dam. More in this report.
Throughout the years, the Compton Dam has retained over 1.7 million cubic meters of silt, which has displaced over 400 million gallons of storage water. This phase will see the dredging of the dam to increase the total water reserve capacity of the plant. Chairman of the Board of Directors, Francis Denbo, explains the complex undertaking will see the transfer of silt to the sediment disposal area through both onshore and offshore pipes.
The reservoir's full capacity has been reduced from 700 million gallons of water storage to 300 million gallons. The challenge then was to bring the reservoir back to its original capacity, as future storms could result in the reservoir being completely filled with silt, bearing in mind that with each rainfall within the forest, there is a continuous leakage of silt into the reservoir on a daily basis from exposed landslides on hundreds of mountain terrain surfaces that are impossible to access or rehabilitate. Assumptions are that it will take 8 to 10 years of dredging works to fully desilt the reservoir.
Speaking at the ceremony held in Millet on Thursday, the minister with responsibility for the island's natural resources, Honorable Ezekiel Joseph, explains that a supporting project facilitated through the Forestry Division to stabilize the soil around the dam will prove to augment Wasco's efforts to bring about a more improved water quality and infrastructure.
This is another major accomplishment for us as a team. It's another major accomplishment for us as a government, and you heard from the chairman all the work that we have done for the past 4.5 years. It has not been easy, but I can stand up here and say I have a team that I believe in. I have a government and a cabinet that's very supportive of what we are doing with Wasco, and I'm sure like the pastor prayed for us a while ago, that we would see the completion of phase 2 without any major accidents.
Prime Minister Honorable Alan Shasney commended the work of the Natural Resources Minister and his team for their continuous efforts to build a more resilient St. Lucia.
But it's so good to see that a group of men and women have come together and put their minds to it to progress. And this is why we keep on saying that we need to build a new St. Lucia. Not just a better St. Lucia, but a world-class St. Lucia. And it starts with water. We need to have secure, clean water being distributed through the length and breadth of this country to allow development to take place.
The desilting of the Compton Dam is being funded by the Caribbean Development Bank, the Government of St. Lucia, and the Water and Sewage Company, WASCO. From the Information Unit of the Ministry of Agriculture, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
Preparations for the hosting of the Atlantic Rally for cruisers continue here as officials create an environment of safety against the coronavirus. We have Herma Demac with a report. Take a look.
The Events Company of St. Lucia, ECSL, and the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, SLTA, held the check presentation ceremony for the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers, ARC. This event is being scaled down from 250 to 100 participating vessels due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In attendance at the ceremony were key stakeholders and sponsors of the event, which is held annually in St. Lucia for the past 30 years. The IGY Rodney Bay Marina is the event partner for the ARC and was represented by the General Manager, Sean DeVoe. Also present was the chairperson for the St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Chris Gustav, and CEO of ECSL, Laureen Sidoni. The events manager for the Caribbean for the World Cruising Club, Peter Cozier, was also in attendance. Stakeholders expressed their appreciation to sponsors for their support, especially during a challenging year. Laureen Sidoni is the Chief Executive Officer for the Events Company of St. Lucia.
We do have 30 years of data to work with. So we have a list of sponsors that have supported us. I'm not sure if any has supported us since the start of ARC and ARC Plus, but we do have a list of sponsors that have been with us for a number of years. So in terms of targeting companies to be a sponsor, we normally start with that list. And then we extend it. We decide and we try to figure out which companies can get any sort of investment or a return on investment in terms of the sponsorship. And we would try to attract new companies as well.
The Atlantic Rally for Cruisers will run under strict protocols for the protection of participants and the public against the coronavirus. The General Manager of the IGY Rodney Bay Marina, Sean DeVoe, explains the protocols that are in place.
For the ARC, the participants will undergo 1 week of voluntary isolation on board. After that, they will conduct their a COVID test, which hopefully will be negative, and they will be approved to sail across the Atlantic. Crossing the Atlantic on average takes about 16 to 21 days. So if we add those days up on the sea and their isolation in Las Palmas, the average participant will get to St. Lucia having been in isolation for 21 or more days, along with a negative COVID test in hand. In addition to that, daily temperature checks will be conducted and recorded by the captain on board for everybody on board. Those documents, along with others, will be provided to the Port Health 48 hours before arriving to St. Lucia. And if they are deemed through the CMO's office, if they are deemed to see anything irregular or that could be a potential threat, the vessel is dealt with on anchor and not on the shores of St. Lucia.
The organizers for the Atlantic Rally for Cruisers are working with the Department of Health to ensure the event is executed safely. From the Government Information Service, Herma Demac reporting.
We are due for another break, by the way. Thanks, Herma and Anicia, for those two reports. When we come back, the Bankers of Association of St. Lucia donates to its 5th home for Financial Information Month. Stay with us.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join.
Excessive agrochemical use, additives, and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy, and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP.
The good food revolution.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We're taking a look at the latest developments from the government of St. Lucia. The Bankers Association of St. Lucia donates to its 5th Home for Financial Information Month. The collective group of financial institutions visited the staff and resident of the Cornerstone Humanitarian House in Castries, once again bearing gifts of essential food items and supplies. Okay, we seem to be having some technical difficulties with that. But just to give you some bulletin information, the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment wishes to notify all the clients and of the Public Assistance Program of Babonneau, Castries, Grosley and Sucy Millet regions that payment for the month of October will commence from Monday 16th November to Friday the 20th of November 2020 at the Castries City Hall from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily. So please take note of that. 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. daily, the Castries City Hall will be the place to collect the payments for the public assistance program. That's clients who are in the region of Babonneau, Castries, Grosley, Sucy Millet regions for the month of October. So please take note of that. We're rounding off our morning. We'd like to thank you so much for watching. We'd like to say a special good morning to St. Lucians in the diaspora who are, just checking in to see how their homeland is doing. St. Lucia has recorded 173 cases of COVID-19. So far, we have 112, I believe, cases that are active right now. And we have, since Thursday, we've seen so far 13 individuals recovering. Over the weekend, we had 15 individuals contracting COVID. And just yesterday, 2 more individuals contracted COVID-19. And so the effort on the part of the authorities is to reduce the risk of transmission, the high-risk areas, and that is areas that facilitate social activities. So we had some protocols that took effect yesterday following a NEMAC meeting, consultation with stakeholders, civil society, religious groups, etc. And following that, the Prime Minister concluded with new protocols and did provide an update to the nation on Friday. It takes effect as of yesterday. Prohibition of all sporting activity, no dining at restaurants and food establishments, takeaway services only. The bars are grab-and-go policies only, and the bars should be closed by 4 p.m. So please take note of that. All business activity, all commercial activity outside of the bars, that is, must close by 9 p.m. By 9 p.m. There are limitations on church services. All daily church and religious services are limited to 25 individuals within the church compound. When it comes to weddings, christenings, funerals, it will be limited to 25 individuals at this point in time. That is inclusive of observers and service leaders. Also, we have mass gatherings. They're not allowed right now. No provisions will be made for celebrations of any kind, and that includes birthdays, retirements, weddings, or funeral services. So you can have your wedding or your funeral service, but you can't have a celebration for it. Neither wakes, boat rides, or beach picnics. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, business operations and commercial activities must end by 9 p.m. The government of St. Lucia, the authorities are encouraging, strongly advising that employers institute work from home policies where possible, and to not have reduced contact meetings as much as possible also, all in an effort to reduce the risk of transmission. We are seeing cases continuing to increase. We need to ensure that right at the top, the protocols, right down to the very basic of guidelines are adhered to at this point in time. Ensure that you use your mask, that you wash your hands frequently, and use hand sanitizer where not possible, where you don't have water and soap around you. Observe the 6-foot distance. We know people have to continue to live. There are some people who must go to work, who must report for work. It's just the nature of the job. But while you're there, try not to have any water cooler talk or engage too much with your co-workers. Protect yourself, protect your co-workers who, are so dear to you, that you would love to talk to them as much as possible by perhaps more using the phones instead of going to meet them in person. When you're going to the supermarkets, when you're going out to town, ensure that you adhere to the protocols. The Royal St. Lucia Police Force, the Deputy Commissioner of Police did indicate that there will be strict enforcement of the protocols. So we need all hands on deck, all hands on board to ensure that everyone is adhering to the protocols, that no one is facilitating, no businesses are facilitating any sort of behavior that is in non-adherence to the protocols at this point in time. With that, we're rounding up the morning programming, bringing you the latest developments from the government of St. Lucia. A pity we couldn't show the clip from the Bankers Association donating some items to the Cornerstone Center, but we do thank the Bankers Association for their work so far in making contributions. I believe it's their 5th home in observance of Financial Information Month. We should be having them on the NTN again for a panel discussion later on this November. But we thank them very much for their efforts so far. In wrapping up the morning, the island's Chief Medical Officer advises compliance with COVID-19 protocols as revised measures come into effect. WASCO moves into its 2nd phase of works at the Compton Dam, and the Bankers Association bringing glad tidings, great tidings, good tidings to Cornerstone. Thank you once again. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for now. I do hope you could stay tuned to NTN. Continue to follow all of the official sites. Everybody is, all hands are on deck, as I said earlier, to ensure that we are all in compliance. Even at the GIS, we've had persons working from home to some extent, wherever possible, to ensure that there is limited interaction at this point in time. And we do hope that other businesses, other establishments are following suit, are doing the same, because it is real, St. Lucia. It is real. We need to take precaution at this point in time. For those persons who were being complacent, this is not the time to continue. We're seeing clusters of cases emerging in the 2nd wave of COVID-19 that we're experiencing here in St. Lucia. And anybody, if you rub up against the wrong person, you run the risk of contracting COVID-19. Please ensure you observe the 6-foot distance, wear your mask, ensure that your hands are sanitized, are clean all of the time to reduce the risk of transmission at this time. Protect yourself, protect your family. We know that there have been some heavy rains. The soil is saturated. Many persons are at risk right now. We do hope that you continue to keep safe, protect your home, do whatever you can to protect against the heavy rains. For those of you who have mosquitoes around your home, go about your home to ensure that there are no receptacles that are collecting water right now. Dengue is also a real thing. We've had more more fatalities associated to the dengue fever. So we hope that you are taking all the necessary precautions to protect yourself and your family. And these protocols are across the board. You don't have to be a resident of St. Lucia. You could be visiting St. Lucia. We encourage you to adhere to the protocols. They are very important. It's not because you may not be a national or you're just visiting. You are also a human being having an experience here in St. Lucia with the population. So we also encourage compliance by you as well. Jesse Leon signing off for now. Do enjoy the rest of your day and stay tuned to NTN for more national programming. Goodbye.